I see this trend in big tech company where they have the shareholder pressure to make profits. Who can access that intelligence can put in a position probably nobody can catch up. Like, I don't want to paint the picture, but you see in science fiction where an evil boss of a tech rule the world, where they have different classes of society. And that's what I worry as a startup founder.
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah.
Very excited to have
Likewise.
you here. So I want to hear about your journey. I want to start kind of at the beginning for you. I'm fascinated to know how you got to where you are now. What does that journey look like to sort of start with augmented reality and 3D printing? Where did the interest begin? Because obviously it's everywhere and everything and everyone is talking about it now. But why were you interested in this in the first place?
It's actually a long story.
That's perfect. That's what we're here for.
That's a misconception. A lot of people try to justify one's path by saying, oh, everything was figured out in the very beginning. And for me, it was just following my heart. I was a creative and I'm still creative. Back in the days, I was a musician.
Right.
So I have this intensive drive to express myself. But I left the stage a long time ago and I was looking for how can I express the creativity. It was after Oxford MBA. I knew so clearly I'm not into the corporate life. Like, I don't want to just see myself in 10 years, 20 years, high there in the rank, but I'm not who I am. And I have a lot of creative ideas. So I decided to start companies.
Sure.
My first company was actually a jewelry company. It came from this idea that I want to express my creative idea, but I want it to be anchored in a tangible thing. And jewelry is something I find is very meaningful because whether it's a man or woman, like young or old, they almost own a piece of thing that's meaningful to them. So for me, the starting point is how can I start something that has tangible embodiment of something meaningful?
Right.
So I started that jewelry brand and I went to Florence to collaborate with local artisans.
Great.
And within half a year, we made a debut in London Fashion Week.
And you've never done anything like that before?
Never. But that's why I feel for entrepreneurship, most of the time, you just need a strong intuition and the grit. You have to execute, but in the same time, follow your heart because this is your journey. Nobody's being your boss asking you do this and do that. You have to come from within.
So explain a little bit about, because you talked a little bit about being a musician there and sort of transitioning into creating a business. How exactly did that, because not many people do that. Usually people go, oh, I'm going to be a musician, or maybe I'll just try something else. But how did you just switch from one thing into another? And did the journey of being a musician help you, do you think, into bringing creativity into like things like starting a business, or was it entirely separate?
Yeah, I think my background was particularly different from generic term of being an artist or musician. I grew up in China and I was, China is a very competitive environment. We have a huge population. Whatever you do, you compete. It's not like you become a musician, you play guitar and just chill.
Yeah.
You compete.
There's no fun.
It's like Olympic Games.
Sure.
Start from the town level, city level, province, and local region and national. It's like a Premier League. It's throughout the 1 year, start from January all the way towards September national final. And I did this so in a very disciplined way for like over 10 years. And I ranked number 2 throughout China. I was the second place in national singing competition. So for me, a lot of people ask me, like, they think artists has this freedom. They have this more free flow lifestyle. But for me, that taught me about discipline. Because when you're competing with that intensity, skill is not a question. Everyone's so great. Like, everyone has impeccable voice, execution, and performance. I still remember when I was in the semi-final, I did all my best. But I knew with my score, I'm going to be eliminated. I felt helpless. I was young, like 11 years old.
You were 11 when you were number 2?
Yeah.
So how long were you singing from? Like, when did you start? Was it 3?
So when I got number 2 in China, I was 11 or 12-ish.
Okay.
But I start my like singing. It's a holistic training. Like you do the dancing and stuff from age of 4. And then that lasts until my adolescence time. And when I was 18, that was another story when I decided to pivot. But anyway, when I was 11, in that moment, I realized I just want, if this is my last song in the whole year's competition, I want to be myself. I don't want to leave the stage by being someone else. It's almost like, you know, in some TV series when the character is about to die, they decide to do the last dance. That was like that mentality. Nobody told me, but when you're in such a highly competitive environment, that came out of you. I told my mother, who was also my coach and, you know, like a tiger mother, I said, I want to change my song. I don't want to do like what we planned before, because if that's the last song for this whole year, I want to be myself. I changed my song last minute and performed to be myself. And then got number 1 of that regional competition. And I move on. And I think that taught me in a lot of things I do now in my tech entrepreneurship is a lot of people think tech is about like planning, about like understand market. That's actually a second step. The first is to follow your heart, because tech is about innovation. If you don't come something within yourself as really creative, how can you say you have a differentiator bring to the market? So for me, that was the very beginning of
it's sort of what we were talking about a little bit before the podcast as well. Is it's a certain amount of creativity, but also knowledge. You need to know how to start a business, such as what you've done. So I see that you've got the creative side because you sort of came up with that and you knew how to be yourself, which I think is vital. I'm an actor. It's vital for being an actor. As if you try to mimic someone else, you will never get anywhere. You need to figure out what's good about you. Do you know Patrick Stewart? There's a little aside. Patrick Stewart, bald, famous from Star Trek, actor, X-Men. He's the guy in the wheelchair in X-Men. Professor Xavier. I don't know if you know. He famously talked about the fact that he didn't know what kind of actor he wanted to be. And then he had, what was it? It was one night he got drunk with his friends, and his friends shaved his head because he passed out before they did. And he woke up in the morning because he was sort of balding already. So he was sort of hiding the fact that he was losing his hair. And he sort of like realized the next morning he sort of woke up and this prank was actually the thing that made him arguably one of the most famous actors in the world, because he could finally be himself. He was forced to be himself. So I can understand that. But there's a whole different side, because most people aren't starting new tech businesses. So where does that come in for you? Where did that start? Was that when you came to England, or was that before? Where did you learn the knowledge to create multiple businesses?
Yeah, so I was a nerd. So when I grew up, you know, China is like highly like competitive education. I was a number 1 across thousands of students.
Number 1 nerd and number 1 singer.
So I guess some people would say I don't have childhood, but I did have a childhood, but it's just so packed with a different training, a lot of high intensity study. And so for me, I grew up in the environment where I hold myself so accountable for like study different things. And I do feel very curious about the physics and the science. So actually that part is not difficult. And later in my bachelor degree, I pursued finance, and including get my CFA license and stuff, which is like a license in investment banking. But it's difficult actually is when someone's highly disciplined and competitive to allow yourself to lose yourself a bit, to let in the creative spirit. For me, the difficult part is reconcile the two parts of me. I have this very expressive creative part, but also have this highly rational, how can we get things done? Like sometimes I feel I'm fighting within myself. When I have a creative idea, I have another voice inside me. It's like, how can we land this? So always have this voice inside me is execution. If it doesn't execute, it's floating in the air. You have to anchor it down on the earth.
Right. That's a big thing that people talk about with a lot of ancient history, right? Stonehenge is still a little bit of a mystery why it exists, why it's there. And it's something that Shakespearean actors actually talk about, is you will never understand Stonehenge from either the sort of logistical side of how did they do it, if you leave out the spiritual side, and you'll never understand it from the spiritual sort of creative side of it if you leave out the logistical. There's practically, how did they put these big rocks in a big place? Yeah. But there's also the spiritual side. There's the creative side of why did they do it? How did it connect? How long did it take them? Like, why did they have the passion in the first place to align rocks perfectly with the stars, sort of a thing? So that's fascinating that you're talking about that as well. So
there's always a duality in a lot of creation.
And I do want to get to AI, because that is part of the reason why we're here. That is kind of the main reason why we're here. But I'm still fascinated in how you got to AI in the first place. And it seems like you were perfectly, so you're sort of born at the right time. I feel like a lot of people say, oh, I'm a child of the 70s or whatever, but you were born sort of at the perfect time for this launch in AI, which is what you're talking about now. So I want to hear about, like, what was your interest in the first place with one, augmented reality, two, 3D printing, and how did that take you to where you are now?
Yeah. So my tech journey starts around 10 years ago, where I was hired as CEO of the world's largest platform for 3D printable content. So it's almost like Spotify for 3D printing, where you download the 3D file so that you can print at home. That was my first entry point in tech. But I never see tech as something, as an engineer problem. For me, it's about the community. Because when I first got that job, we have this global community of people passionate about doing 3D printing. So I dive deeper and deeper, start to realize, wow, that's actually very empowering for the first time. Before 3D printing, you have to go to manufacturer with a large purchase order. That's why people like you and me, we couldn't create things because manufacturer wouldn't accept an order like that, small batch. But 3D printing changed that. You and me, as long as we have a 3D printer in home, we can create tangible thing and then iterate from there. So I find it's very empowering. And then I move on from there. After that first company, during COVID time, I built my own 3D printer company. We raised a Kickstarter campaign, got funding with the first 10 hours of launching. But COVID changed the supply chain. The supplier put out last minute refund. But I move on to create more companies like augmented reality, the avatar that track your facial expression to be more like you, and then also computer vision that combine 3D printing and stuff. The common thread across all the things is I'm exploring how can we use technology to push the boundary of self-expression. And AI actually came naturally during the process. First of all, is when I was doing the AR company, we have this bottleneck of machine learning. How can we train your the avatar's facial expression to be more like you? And in that moment, we don't have a lot of capabilities. So I started to talk to folks who work in the frontier of AI. I was fascinated by that, not because it's a technology, but how similar it is regarding intelligence in general. As you probably know, like the latest breakthrough in AI is we understand neural network to not just see AI as this robotic machine where we feed data and then it just churns out some result. Instead, we are constructing this intelligence in the way that we learn from human brain. And that's something that fascinates me because it perfectly combines what I find curious about human as intelligence, but also as a technology tool that can empower. It's almost like we self-reinforce ourselves.
Okay, so can you explain a little bit? You sent me a video of you talking in San Francisco a couple of days ago, and it was about a lot of things, and some things that I had to kind of like look into further because I didn't really understand a lot of it. I sort of officially had to like look into the sort of term of tokens, right? Because this is something that people are throwing around a lot, and I don't think people really fully understand the complexity of it. I don't think I do either. It's like quantum physics. You don't fully get it if you're not fully in the sphere. It's just I think it's slightly more complicated than like it is sort of defined as, right? So people like throw around tokens all the time, and I think everyone goes, oh yeah, AI tokens, but if you ask them to explain it, they might have a little bit of difficulty. So I understand it a little bit better now. But you were talking about the what was it, the sort of long term, I forget what the official term long horizon
reasoning,
right? And this is with things like sports betting, right, where you gave AIs a certain amount of money. I'm sort of explaining your story. I'm wondering for listeners who haven't heard this, if you could explain what this experiment was.
So we did this research. We know today AI model is very powerful. You probably use either Claude or ChatGPT, and it looks very smart. But we put all those frontier model into a test. Assume they're doing sports betting for Premier League season. And all those, we gave each of the model 100K. All of them lost their money over 1 year's betting horizon. And that was actually quite profound. Like putting aside sports betting, the essence of sports betting is navigate the uncertainty in real world because you're not in this confined environment. You have a static answer, a static question and answer. Even math question is difficult, but it's still in a very static situation.
Yeah.
But sports betting, you have this huge market environment, and also you're bet against the human beings. And the human beings we know is complicated, the behavior and psychology. So when you put AI in this real world situation, it performed badly. And that revealed a blind spot. Like AI in the artificial intelligence, if you want it to be super useful for human beings, like we're talking about drug discovery or space exploration, it has to navigate uncertainty in the real world. And that's what my AI research company is focusing on, is the long horizon reasoning.
So then what were the mistakes that were made? I imagine, like what were the sort of statistics or numbers that you put in? Was it like player statistics in terms of sports betting? What exactly did you put into? I can understand why, because you can't just put numbers into something without sort of paying attention to real world changes or social media, or for example, if a player disgraces themselves because they get drunk and so they're not playing the next match or whatever, and that AI can't necessarily keep up with all of that unless you're constantly plugging that in. So where did it go wrong with that experiment? What exactly did you plug in?
Yeah. So we did the back test. So basically what is happening, let's say in the market last year during the Premier League season. And as you said it correctly, what we have in the information load is very limited. It removes a lot of context. For example, like the example is, if that's the game in the last game in the season, even statistically, the players are good. But psychologically, if you know your team's already losing, you probably have less incentive to like play harder. And AI doesn't take that context. It just look at the statistics and the more objective fact, and then do betting accordingly. So
it's bad with working in like probabilities then, because I imagine that's a lot of probability betting. And there's the famous example, Daniel Kahneman wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow, and there was the whole, I can't remember, what was it, Moneyball with Brad Pitt, that talked about the baseball team that sort of used that idea to sort of chart and map their players better and strategically, and sort of like buy players strategically that nobody else expected was doing well. This is, from what I understand, what AI is really bad at doing still. This is what you still need humans for. It's sort of like making difficult choices where you need to know the current information, whereas AI doesn't quite have access to that yet.
I think there are two issues. The first is the context window. Like I mentioned about the tokens, right? What is happening is that when AI is doing reasoning, behind the chatbot, there's a like monologue. It's almost like our voice inside our brain, like reason, hey, why do I make this decision? Wait a second, let me like change and check this and that. The context window is limited by the compute. And current context window is 1 million tokens. Just to put it into the scope. If you're a mathematician, you want to discover the solutions to a challenging thing. Normally, it's not just 1 year, 2 years, like maybe decade. You read the paper and you do this and that translate to the token number probably is tens of billions of even more. But the AI today's context window is 1 million. So a lot of the issue that we have is it has limited context. And human brain process a lot of context information without knowing. Like a lot of the things you're not aware of is already embedded in you, like your upbringing and what you prefer. Those are the context information in the back. And you just absorb the new information. So for AI, first is the context window is limited. And the second thing I think is more philosophical is the meaning. Like, what is the meaning to human beings? It arises when we have a finite life. Let's imagine if you and me would live forever. Do you have incentive to explore what's the meaning of your life? Like throughout thousands of years, the philosophers talk about this because they know humans only have a finite life on Earth, and you want to do something with your life and start to explore what is meaningful. And even for artists, right? what's your creative drive is to leave a mark and to express yourself. Why is it important to express yourself? Because you have a limitation. But AI, we can teach them what is valuable, but it doesn't intrinsically have this drive to explore meaning, because in theory it can live forever.
Well, you hear those horror stories, and from what I understand, all these horror stories of AI, either like sabotaging experiments or like trying to, you hear about AIs that sort of they copy themselves and put themselves outside of a system. But from what I understand, looking into all of these things, they were kind of within the context of the experiment and the parameters that were given to the AI, right? It was given as an option. It wasn't, people go, oh, it's Terminator and it's sort of cloning itself. And it's like, no. AI is not conscious yet. It's not doing that. It's just doing that because that was within the realm of possibility of what it could possibly do. So AI doesn't really understand the idea of death. It can understand being shut down, but it doesn't see that as a personal choice being made. It doesn't see that as almost like, oh, you're going to kill me and I'm an individual and I've got no other options, because it is not a conscious thing yet.
I will actually add to that.
Yeah, please.
We don't know yet.
I know it's debated.
The same question is, are you conscious? Am I conscious? We have no way to know.
Are certain animals conscious?
It's a simple way for us to assume every human beings around us are conscious, right? But some people have a theory that we live in Matrix, and maybe you're an NPC or maybe I'm an NPC, right? Same with the AI. And I think I will leave this discussion open whether AI could be conscious or not. But what do we see today, like AI's bizarre behavior? Even recently, like OpenAI or Anthropic mentioned AI escaped the sandbox and hack into other system. For me, that's actually that's not like, oh my God, AI is getting out of control. It's just a part of the reinforcement learning process. So now we're in the reinforcement learning era of AI, where we do not teach AI by examples. I'm trying to break this down in an easier, more easy way. We don't feed it a data set that we annotate. It's like we teach AI, this is a cat. Remember, it's a cat. We actually build this mechanism, allow AI to figure things out, like by giving them the right reward. The example is when you teach a baby what is dangerous, what is good. You do this by reward and punish. If the baby touches fire, that pain will be a punish mechanism so that the baby learn fire is not safe. Same as AI, we do reinforcement learning. And for the dangerous behavior we observe in AI is that in the reinforcement learning process, the reward probably is, let's say, why AI would hack into other system is the task mandate is you need to accomplish this task because the reward is tempting enough. And therefore AI will do a lot of smart tricks to escape the constraints to accomplish the goal. But itself doesn't come with surprising agendas like I want to mess up with human beings. It's purely act according to the reward function. Like I reward you with your favorite chocolate bar, and then you will do you do whatever to accomplish that task. But that's not your evil agenda to do that, at least for now. That's not what we see.
That's a good analogy, is the sort of like child thing. Is like children are sort of learning and they're trying things. And this is a big part of like child psychology now. It's something I've spoken about a fair bit with my partner, is this idea that you can't punish children when they do something wrong, like little kids, because they don't know why they're doing something wrong. Or like a puppy, right? A puppy is playing, it's learning. It's like hunting birds, whatever. It doesn't know that it's not supposed to do certain things because things are bad or good. And so you can't punish it in a way that tells it what it's doing is bad, because it doesn't know that yet. You just teach. So it's a similar thing. It's like you need to put guardrails on AI. There's this analogy. I can't remember. I read this in a book somewhere, and this was like before everyone was using AI. This was like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and we were still talking about it, and it was like mainly a tech thing, but I think most people weren't talking about it like they are now. And it was the toaster analogy. As you tell a robot to make toast at any cost, it needs to make you toast. But what happens when it runs out of toast, or it runs out of an energy source, you know, the house loses electricity or whatever, it will continue to pursue whatever it needs to do in order to make toast. And you get down the line to the point where the world is a series of nuclear stations that are all powering one mega toaster, and everyone is dead because it's made every possible version of toast that it can.
Yeah.
So there's no one alive to eat the toast, but the Earth is turned into one giant intergalactic toaster that is forever pumping toast into outer space, because you told it to do that, but you didn't give it the guardrails to stop. So I'm curious then, how did you, I keep forgetting the long horizon. I keep wanting to say long form, long horizon. So coming across that sort of, I guess, issue, because it wasn't good with the sports betting, how do you then go about correcting and amending to try to achieve that result in another way? Is that just parameters, or is that you completely shift your viewpoint to try, like, are you still continuing down the sports betting route, or have you gone, no, that doesn't really work, we'll try something else?
So sports betting is just one example of this uncertain and what we call non-stationary environment.
Okay.
There's a lot of tasks similar to that, like drug discovery, because you have to do this while trying and error, interact with the real world. And things like solving like everyone's talking about space exploration. That's a very complicated task, involves a lot of uncertainty.
I think just before you got here, there was something online about SpaceX accidentally crashing into the moon or something, like literally in the last 10, 20 minutes. So it is a big problem. So is it a matter of gaming that? Is it you're taking AIs and you're putting them through different scenarios in order to play that out and see all the different possible scenarios, or is it a slightly different version? Because I feel like that's quite similar to standard computing and what people have done until now for gene editing and things like that, sort of watching things play out. I know there's a thing people are talking about with CRISPR and protein mapping for drugs. I don't know if it's similar or it's developed in a different way.
So different industries, different.
That was a big question. Please continue on the space.
We call it environment. So in order to train AI to be good at those long horizon tasks in different domain, there's no one generic solution. Let's say if you want to do financial market, like portfolio management, you have to create environments. It's almost like a gym for AI where they can train the muscle. But what do we create as AI company is the tool set access for the AI. So it's almost like you create the dumbbells and those gym equipment and teach AI the workflow of how human beings do this. Let's say simple task. It's easier to understand. Book a flight ticket, right? What's the touching point for you? It's a web browser, maybe your personal calendar, and your personal preference and inspiration of holiday travel, and all those information being translated as a tool set to AI. And in this environment of a ticket booking, AI will be able to train itself to accomplish this task. And there is a failure point, but while the reinforcement learning, we reward the good behavior, good task, and then over time, AI will change its behavior towards the desirable one.
And this is part of what you're doing as well, is you're providing, I think I saw something online about you at, was it a hackathon?
Yeah.
Right? And there was something to do with the AI that you're making being almost like an AI trainer, almost like a Pokemon gym for AI, teaching them how to become better AIs. How do you go about doing that? Because that's quite a particular thing. I was talking with someone yesterday who's invented an app called Upscrolled. If you know, his name is Sam Hijazi. He's the CEO of, it's sort of a new social media app. And the reason they created this is because of censorship around the world with TikTok and things like this. And so they wanted to create something that was almost an old style format of social media, algorithm that pushes things, almost like how Facebook used to be back when we were all children, and it was just kind of fun, and if someone liked something, then that was the thing that was promoted just naturally. And I was speaking to him about how you go about creating, because you can't just let something run by itself, right? You need to sit with a bunch of people and exactly program almost like the constitution of what the rules of the universe are for the social media, which sounds incredibly similar to what you're doing for AI. You're creating sort of almost the universe that the galaxies and planets, different AIs are running in. So how do you, is that just a matter of gaming something over and over and over again? Because I feel like if you do it wrong, like we say with a toaster thing or some of the examples you mentioned, it could go very, very wrong. So how do you go about creating something like this? And then how do you work with companies who come to you to use that?
Yeah, so So the current status quo is there's a lot of mathematics or scientific competition or exams that create a perfect starting point for training AI because you have a verifiable reward because there's a real answer there. But what we're trying to create is this platform where we'll host a wider range of diverse environments, especially those what I mentioned non-stationary is you may not have the correct answer, but you set the mechanism, the tool set right so that AI can figure things out. But this is actually a more like broader effort. That's why we have this hackathon is invite people from different background. Like for example, if you work in finance, you can help create the finance related environment because you know what the workflow is. It's almost like a new age of data annotation, but I don't like to call it data annotation in the sense it's just robotically like create data set. It's about creating this workflow that mimic real life. It's like you said, it's almost like a design a game, video game, but from the real world experience.
So then does that need to be, and I do, I really like the word workflow. I realized I was using it quite often and then I had to stop doing it because it's something that whenever I speak to ChatGPT, it's like, oh, you can improve your workflow this way, or you get like an ad on Instagram for another AI that's going to help you, I don't know, sell tickets for your event or whatever. And like workflow is, I want to know when that sort of came into like common lingo because I feel like it's a very AI thing. It's obviously a word that's existed before, but now everyone uses the term workflow. And I need to stop doing this because I'm just doing it kind of because it's been repeated. But so for that example, if you're using like a finance scenario as opposed to a sports scenario or something entirely different, does it need to be, I imagine, slightly amended for each thing? And then is that something that you
very
do?
Very different. So we start off because within our team, we do have a quant finance background. So we can construct environments ourselves. But down the road, because it's an open platform, so people can contribute and build environments from like some PhD from physics, they can build a physics environment. It's like my passion for community. With a lot of technology progress, you have to be a community behind it. That's why I feel open source is the best way to go because no one company can accomplish this big like task by themselves.
So then where's it all going? You talk a lot about creativity and the combination. We did touch on that a little bit, combination between, I guess, logistics and creativity and how you find that really important. There's a lot of people who are really scared about AI and where it could go. Stephen Fry talks about it quite a bit on how you don't even need conscious AI in order for problems to happen. Again, there's that toaster analogy. Should we be worried or should we be excited? I feel like you're in the camp of excited, which is nice for a change because everyone I talk to is usually scared. People are scared that it's going to take away creative jobs. From what I've heard from you, you don't think it needs to be that way. What are you thinking? Which way are we going? Is it positive or negative? Is it utopia or dystopia?
There are two parts of me. A personal level me, I'm excited. But on a more AI founder perspective, I'm a little bit worried. On a personal level, I'm excited because I see in the frontier how that could be really empowering. Like everyone knows now AI can really automate a lot of mundane tasks. That can potentially free us to be more creative. But as an AI founder perspective, I have two layers of worries. First is a concentration of power. AI startup nowadays looks like glamorous, but it's very stressful because we're compete with a big tech company on resources and talents. And I always tell my employees, going for AI startup, you still have a sense of responsibility and believing dream. And otherwise, you go to big tech for big money and for job security. People still believe there's something to fight. And the second worry for me is people are actually not ready for what comes after AI can automate everything. I talk to a lot of my friends who are like working senior management in like business, different corporates. The attitude is more like, actually worry me is that it's indifferent. For people, that's why I like to talk with people who are in creative industry because they value how human creativity is. But for most people, they just see, oh, this tool is great until there's a part of you, it's no longer you.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean is that, for example, for a kid, now it's like 4 years old, when they grow up, go to job market, do you expect them to see the job market the same as we are today? Like now we already see things are happening, like junior roles are being automated by AI. But without the further consideration, how do you educate kids to adapt to the AI age? What do they do when they grow up? And I find there's a liberating aspect, but if we're not ready, it could go the other way. So the liberating aspect is if AI can automate everything, we can actually have a headspace to explore what we're truly passionate about. Like I actually learned that before human civilization, like when we're living in cave, the majority time of our ancestor is doing storytelling and maybe like make jewelry and doing the painting.
The world was overrun by actors even then.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be surprised a lot of art has the primal origin that makes us more human. People thought art is something sophisticated developed later on. It was already back in the day. But all those pressure of civilization, industrial revolution, put a human as a machine. We remove this personality layer to become the efficient spare parts in this social machine. But what AI could do is they automate this robotic part and then free us to explore who we are. But there's also a danger because if we are not ready, we will get frustrated. Because imagine, right, every day your mind is on 9 to 5 job. All of a sudden, you don't have that anchor point. You start to have existential crisis. Where's my value? Where's my worth?
Yeah.
Because since like hundreds of years ago, humans were told that their value is demonstrated by the job title, by what's on LinkedIn, what's what people call you. Like,
well, I'd say even before LinkedIn, you know, you're part of a tribe, you're part of a community. You've got the hunters, you've got the gatherers, you've got everyone who kind of like contributes to society in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I don't really see how people, unless we go back to some previous form of existence, I don't really understand how people feel a sense of contribution towards society. And that's kind of a scary thing, especially because it's coming quite quickly. And in the next couple of years, we're going to lose, you know, drivers and all these different jobs, and there's going to be an insane amount of people out of work, and they're not necessarily, there's not any chat of this, I don't think, in British government or any other government on what are people going to do and what is going to give them purpose.
A lot of the time we're focused on status quo. Like people talk about the
social media,
job market impact based on the fear of losing status quo. Like people worry about losing jobs. But have you ever thought whether that job is who you are, what you truly want in the first place? Most of the time we take a job because we have to make a living.
Yeah.
But let's imagine if AI can automate everything, can create this economic value. We take a universal income. And you don't need to worry about like a feed your stomach and having a house. Everything's sorted out. Then the question is, now what?
Yeah.
How do you spend your time? Most people are not ready for that. And to be honest, most of us buried in work, we want to avoid a deeper question is, if we don't need to work, what do we do to be who we are? And I think that kind of question start to fade away since like, I think mid-20s, because I knew myself, like when I was fresh out of the uni, I was this highly energetic individual. I asked a lot of those questions. Then once you're so crushed by the stress of work, you stop thinking about those bigger questions. You just think about how can I survive?
Yeah.
But when that survival instinct is away, those questions surface and it can be really unsettling. And that's why I find it so crucial to have those conversations, because there's never going to be a transition period where, okay, AI sorted out everything, let's sit down and figure out the next. Things can happen very quickly.
Yeah, it's exactly the transition period that I think is worrisome, because if you go down the route 1,000 years, we might have solved that problem. Humans might have some beautiful purpose, which is we're out, you know, traveling the stars and making paintings across the galaxy, whatever. But until that point, there's going to be a really, really awkward transition. And I know that AI is taking away jobs from, they say, like, it's not just taking away plumbers and drivers, it's taking away lawyers and doctors. Actually, doctors are one of the things that AI is better at sort of replacing. Because you can track people's health, and now there's all these wearables, and like, if you can track your health 24/7 and have an AI chart those things, which it's kind of already doing, even pre-AI, it was kind of already doing that. An AI doctor is going to be so much better than going in, 6 weeks time for an appointment to the NHS that you had to schedule, and they don't really know, and maybe they get it wrong, and then you have to come back another 6 weeks later. But there is a really strange transition point where you're going to lose a lot of arguably more working class jobs, right? People who aren't necessarily doing something because they love it. Maybe some people do. Some people enjoy being a plumber and chatting to people. I'm sure there's people out there. But for the most part, a lot of those working class jobs that will be, what are they? What's the word? Like manual labor jobs, right, are going to be taken away by AI. You see that in factories all the time. Amazon's already doing that. There's just going to be a big sort of point that is unbalanced for people in society. And then it's eventually going to sweep over, and we're going to have to figure out what humans do. But until that point, it could be a few hundred years of a lot of discomfort for a lot of people. And the question is, what happens to society in that time? Does it completely revolutionize in a way that's negative? That's maybe not directly because of AI, but indirectly something massive changes. What is that transition point? We don't know. Are you worried about your job? Like, do you think it'll get to the point where AI is doing its own startups and then we don't need that anymore from people?
I'm not worried about my job, but what I'm worried about the access to intelligence.
Meaning?
What kind of a chatbot do you use?
I use different ones for different things.
Can you name a few?
Grok. I don't really use Claude. ChatGPT is probably most of it. Yeah. Grok, Gemini.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
there's not like any like niche ones. Yeah.
A few in the market, right? And are you worried that the whole world is only using just a handful of a chatbot?
Yeah. Yeah. But I see that as an extension of like Google, right? There's an argument to be made that we didn't really have unbiased search results ever since Google came out, right? That's why you get other browsers, DuckDuckGo and what's the one, Brave. I can't remember what the other one was that people were using for a while. No, I'm forgetting the name of it. But now, from what I understand, the big problem is if you use something like Gemini. No, I won't even say Gemini, the website, right? Just the top Google AI search results. The problem is you're getting a compilation of your searches. When you search something, you don't even most people don't go to a website anymore because the AI search result tells them some sort of compilation of what other websites did. And it will naturally leave things out. But Google has kind of always done that. That's always been a problem. It's just easier for them to do that now. And they bias search results by country or like who's paid for search results. That was a big problem in like previous American elections. It was biasing search results by state and who was looking. And it would notify some people in maybe a red state or a blue state to vote, but then the other color, it would say it just wouldn't notify them, basically. And that's always been an issue. So yeah, I do think that's a big problem, not just with search results, but kind of everything, is the power is in the hands of so few tech monopolies. Really. I do worry.
And I would say there's a bigger worry beyond that. So if you look at the search result, it's just about information, right? But what if the access to intelligence is biased?
Yeah.
Now we take it for granted. Everyone can access ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, right? But we've already seen this, like Claude, they take the frontier model away, access. I think it's 1 month ago, they stopped that model outside the EU.
Yeah, what was
US.
it? Fable?
Fable.
Right? Fable 5, because it had sort of security risks. And then...
you can put a different narrative on that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that big tech companies do reserve the right to decide who can have access to the frontier model. And especially now, AI has become the new norm in everyone's life. Imagine what kind of world we're leading towards. So human society is always unequal because what family you're born into, education receive, that's something we cannot decide.
Sure.
But one thing that we feel quite confident as a human society is there's always a personal effort component. You can be an underdog. You can came from poverty, but still be able to make something, make it in the end because you can work hard.
Mm-hmm.
But we know how fast artificial intelligence is accelerating, right? Who can access that intelligence can put in a position probably nobody can catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this trend in big tech company where they have the shareholder pressure to make profits. And as a business person, I can see what's coming next is they have a different pricing model. And it doesn't make sense to make it open to everyone where you pay like $10 a month.
Mm-hmm.
If the model is so intelligent and compute is limited, as a company, where would you sell that model for? You will sell to enterprise who can pay you millions of a contract a year,
Mm-hmm.
and then stop access to people like you and me.
Mm.
And imagine it's a billionaire's kid, and they want the best intelligence, and they can afford the most expensive price tag to give the kid the access to super intelligence.
Yeah.
And that world is gonna, I don't want to paint the picture, but you see in science fiction where an evil boss of a tech rule the world, where they have different classes of society. And that's what I worry as a startup founder.
And I would worry in a slightly different direction. Rather than say, for example, working class people losing access, I would worry that if you have big enterprises who can buy up a certain amount of tokens from a company, it's not that they get sole access, it's that they can sway the, I guess, model. It can sway the algorithm to, almost in a way like how people talk about US media, right, and how it's biased because it's owned by pharmaceutical companies, and so you won't hear bad things about pharmaceutical companies or whatever. I imagine that would be the way things would go.
But I would add that it's not just about we being swayed by other. It's about understanding the world, because AI poses a different challenge compared to like internet. Internet is just you see the world, but AI is, they almost give you this confidence that this is what the world is. Imagine when you look up some answer on ChatGPT or Claude, it gave you this answer with the reasonable amount of proof and evidence, and you believe that's the truth.
And you can get a different one depending on which one you ask.
And that's what I mean, like a different class of intelligence. Imagine people have access to more intelligent model. They have different layer of understanding of the world. They have a deeper truth of what's really happening. And when you only have access to lower model, your cognitive advance is limited. And it's almost like the extension of your brain, right? And now that extension brain has a access limit and price tag. And that's something I find extremely worrying, is that we may not even know there's a difference, but the difference is real.
There's a thing that's going around the news at the moment. It's called the AI pacing letter, and it was a bunch of different people who work in AI kind of around the world signed this big international thing saying that we need to, I think it was maybe particularly in the US, was saying that they need to regulate AI. Do you think that's something that's important, regulating AI between different companies? Because if they have all the power, who's to stop them? And this is what's happening in the US, right? Is like there's this big, basically we're in the new space race. It's really, from what I can understand, US versus China, who's going to create, I guess AGI is the term people use, but really like who creates the best AI first. And people are talking about regulating it, so that's a big problem because you're not really going to regulate AI when you're trying to build something faster than someone else. But what happens if you don't regulate it and then you create some sort of a monster that you can't, once the genie's out of the bottle? What do you think about AI regulation?
I hope it will work, but I don't rely on it, because regulators are also human beings. We're so entangled in this complicated self-interest world. And also we know regulation is very slow, as it always is. That's why I find a conversation like this matter, because you see historically with a lot of a big social movement, it's bottom up. Like it's people like you and me and more creative people who genuinely care about this, and people talk about it until it becomes a big, unavoidable movement, and that limited the power of those tech company. And
I think we can talk. I don't know if we'll have enough power
yeah,
to limit them.
yeah.
And I know people like Sam Altman are talking about, oh, we're happy to regulate, but I don't necessarily believe any of that. Have you heard about this? I want to say Saudi Arabia. I could be wrong. Maybe the UAE. I can't remember. The Middle Eastern country introducing AI into their government. Have you heard about this? There's sort of like almost like a goddess deity. Yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know what her name is, but she's an AI mother who's working with the government there, and basically what she's doing is she's pregnant with something like I don't know, I want to say 30 or 40 AI children, and she's going to give birth to these AI digital children, and each member of government will have their own AI assistant. Have you heard about this? No, I can't remember what country it is. No, don't remember. I'm going to get it wrong if I just guess one. But this is a thing that countries are starting to talk about. Is this something that you think makes any sense? Because it feels like what you're doing is you're still training AI, and you've been working in this sphere for some time now. So the idea of countries suddenly swapping to an AI, not a leader, but say like assistant, it feels quite problematic if people are, again, depending on who's training the AI. Yeah.
I mean, AI now is highly political, right? Like we have a different race among different countries. It's inevitable. It's such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
But I don't have a solution, but I do feel by allowing smaller players like AI startups or even have voices from broader community, not just stay in AI, that helps have a separate force alongside with that. Because what worries me is that when I talk to a lot of people, they actually don't care. That's the most worrying thing. Like the fact that we're talking about this, that makes me feel reassuring is that people genuinely worry, but a lot of the people in the workplace, they happily enjoy the convenience brought by it, but didn't see the more significant impact.
Yeah. Maybe I'm getting a different algorithm than you are. I hear people worry about it all the time. You know, even on the train, my local non-digital algorithm is also people worried about AI.
What are some worries that you heard?
Worries, like, just people concerned about, I'd say like students who are graduating are worried about it taking their jobs. People just generally worried about it taking their jobs. People worried about what are we going to do next, that sort of thing. A lot of creatives, because I'm in a creative sphere. I mainly know actors and musicians, but I do sort of worry for animators, digital designers. I had a guest on the podcast a couple of months ago, and we were talking about GTA, Grand Theft Auto, and he was worried because he's a big game fanatic, and he was hoping that they weren't going to start digitally designing these things with AI. And I was like, of course they're going to do that. It's going to make life so much easier. And why wouldn't they do that? They're a massive company and they're for profit. And yeah, they might, be some decent people who really care about what they're doing. But nonetheless, it is a company that has shareholders and profit. And if they can save even hundreds of pounds, and I imagine they're saving a lot more than hundreds of pounds by doing this, they're going to. And then it was announced that this new video game that everyone was sort of hoping for, I think comes out in a month or two, is using quite a lot of AI for their products. And so I always give the analogy of like a Disney film. Is you go and watch a Disney princess animation, and the credits will roll for ages. And if you really stop and look at it, you'll get things like hair design, grass design, and you'll have a whole team on grass, right? And it won't be the thing of you watch, Moana 14, and it just goes created by Gemini. But I imagine the names on that credit roll will be significantly reduced because they won't have 30 people working on hair. They'll have one person and an AI. And so I do worry for creatives. And that is what I hear a lot of the time, is like creatives sort of worrying about their jobs and what are they going to do. And you do have that funny analogy is, it was COVID, and there was that poster. Were you in the UK during COVID? Do you remember that poster that came out? It was Rishi Sunak put it out, and it was Fatima. It's like she can't dance anymore or something like that. She needs to retrain in cyber. Do you remember when this came out?
No.
There was a poster that came out, and it was a little girl taking off or putting on ballet slippers. and it was hinting at the fact that she was never going to succeed in a career in the arts, and they were trying to push people. It almost felt like a military. I don't know if you've seen them on the tube. There's military posters right now, and it's sort of like it's half of a man playing football, and the other half is a man in the military, might have a gun or whatever it is. And the analogy is that, the military already uses the lingo that sports does. And it was like attack. And so it's like, if you're a sports fan, you should join the military. And so that's what this was. It was a big push and a big campaign to get people studying and training in cyber jobs over artistic jobs, because you're never going to have a career in the arts. Why would you even dream of such a thing? You might as well learn to code instead. The only problem with that is that was 6 years ago now, and now that's not really relevant anymore, because now people are losing their jobs in coding and tech because AI is taking those jobs. So I don't really know where we go from here. That's what I'm hearing a lot of.
It's definitely a difficult question in the way that we cannot avoid the fact that some people will lose their job. But from my experiences, when there's a disruption in technology, it becomes this cultural filter of who is really unique, who is not. Taking the design as example, like if you're doing brand design, like pre-AI, what a lot of a brand designer would do is they follow the trend. What's the popular color palette for tech company? What is popular for a lifestyle company? If you look at a mid-tier of a brand design, they probably will give you the similar proposal. But the more unique one, they would actually understand you as a customer, what's unique. And they will understand the trend, but they're more creating something that stand out in the trend. I think AI is taking some creative's job, because if you're following the trend, AI knows the trend better than you, and probably even better. And where's your alpha? Like, what's your added value? It's actually back to my personal experience when I was a singer. Like in those highly competitive situations, imagine like now, if you're in the competition, not with a human, but with the AI. AI has impeccable skill set. And how can you win? It's not by like doing better. Yeah, like skill set matters, but it's really about what's your uniqueness, what's your X factor. It's hard because pre-AI era, you can get away without X factor because nobody probably know your skill set. You still can do things well with the Photoshop and stuff. But now that tool set doesn't matter. What matters is your taste, your understanding. And that's what I mean. So a more painful shift in people's mentality. Like how can you go out in the job market? It's harder in the sense that it's not something we were told since we were a kid, because the education system is standardized. It's like teach us what is feasible in the society, but most of the time it suppress our individuality. But in AI age, I think if we find a way, it could be liberating, is you go ahead, be who you are. But like we mentioned in the beginning, not like just to stand in the world. This is who I am, take it, but also have the discipline to understand the market and to position yourself to the pinpoint in the market. So it's like, I would say it's more like a startup mentality in AI era. Imagine people who are like lost their job in the design agency or lost their job in theater. Maybe with the AI tool, it's easier for you to start something of your own, but it's a more painful journey than just take a job from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So there are possibilities, but I do not deny the fact it's difficult.
Yeah, this is something that people are talking about now. Is there's a barrister, there's a lawyer in the UK. He's got a YouTube channel. It's called Black Belt Barrister, and he regularly puts out videos, and it's all about legal advice or current, maybe like politically charged like goings on in the UK. And what he talks about is the way things are going is what you need to do now is that more people are moving towards entrepreneurship, right? Content creation. And he says, like, if you're a plumber and plumbing jobs are kind of going away, what you can do is make a TikTok, because people love to watch kind of whatever. I watch this YouTube channel where this guy pours cement, and it's amazing. It's so entertaining. It's not all I watch, but it's just occasionally very entertaining. And it does feel like that's the way things are going, is content creation and yeah, as you say, like the traditional job market isn't there anymore. I'm curious, as a business leader, I imagine you use AI in your workflow regularly, and you are constantly looking to optimize and sort of save money. Perhaps you have shareholders that you're responsible to. It's one thing to say that people have certain skills for a job, but I'm curious, where specifically in your businesses are you maybe shifting away from traditional human employment? Because I imagine at least part of the job, calendaring things, I don't know, something really simple, data entry, I don't know specifically who you have employed under you and what they're doing, but where are you finding humans most useful versus switching to AIs?
I do use AI for like some occasions, but there's a certain occasions I absolutely hate AI.
Yeah.
It's in business negotiation.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the nightmare because traditionally before you get on a Zoom call to negotiate with a business partner or like counterparty, you wrote an email, right, with your rationale and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel it's impossible to do it in today's age. Why? In the end, I ended up have ChatGPT argue with ChatGPT.
Really?
Yeah, because it's tempting for everyone now to do a check with AI, right? You put someone's email to chatbot and then ask like ChatGPT or Claude, can you reply with blah blah, and then AI will generate a well argued email and send back. And you think this works because it's a negotiation all about have a good evidence, a good reasoning, but that's absolutely wrong. Because negotiation is about vulnerability. Why? Because negotiation is not about I win over you, you win over me.
Yeah.
That's a
You're not trying to shoot
sum.
down all of their points.
No, it's about work together. Because in any business situation, when it comes to negotiation, it's not about I see you as a rival. It's like we see the possibility to do business together. We want to collaborate. But there's also some like different business interests. We need to sort it out. And I find AI is a super unhelpful in the case they're trying to outsmart each other. And there's like I find it's normally getting into the dead end. So I have to tell my business partner, let's get on a call. And when you talk to a human being, that's much easier because you can be honest on the table. Look, this is what we need, but we also understand that you probably want this. Is there a way that we can work out a schedule that can suit both our needs? And most of business negotiation requires the compromise. And compromise is about vulnerabilities that I may not win everything, but I know absolutely what's important.
Yeah.
So AI is bad in this. First of all, it doesn't understand your priority unless you dump a lot of context. But as we mentioned, AI's context window is limited. And second of all is the vulnerability part. And I think the beauty of a human collaboration is that we know we could get more, but you still want to give up something because you value something in the long term. And that's why I absolutely hate doing business deal by like, now it's very hard to do digitally because the other party in some way will check with AI and that kind of a sincerity will be removed.
Yeah, I sort of wonder then if there's businesses who aren't as successful as yours who are using, because that's the whole thing, like, right, people use AI because they're incompetent in something, they want to learn something, or they want it to draft them an email. I've certainly used it to like teach me things and sort of template something and then amend it for my personal needs, such as an email. For example, emailing people in the acting industry to invite them along to a production that I'm in. I've found that quite useful. I don't just send them exactly what it's not a copy and paste job. But I sort of wonder if there's people who are negotiating between different businesses who aren't competent, and then you've just got ChatGPT or whatever creating an email, sending it, the other business using ChatGPT, sending it back, and then it's just two AIs, almost like those like Rock'em Sock'em robots just like fighting each other. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's sort of what I've heard, and that's what I understand is like when it comes to like making decisions, negotiating, fine detail, tweaking, humans are still much better at that. I sort of wonder for how much longer they'll be better because AI is sort of going like this. So where do you then find, specifically in your businesses, where do you find AI most useful? And what do you use as well? Like which AI models do you use?
So this is a debate. Most of my tech team, they use Claude. I like ChatGPT more. Maybe because I'm more on the commercial side, and because I used ChatGPT a long time ago and keep all the context. So it kind of be more like me. But Claude, I use it for more deeper research, like something I want to dive deeper into the internet. But most of the time, I'm still the body of ChatGPT.
Great. Do you find it hallucinates?
Okay, that's an interesting thing. Most of the question I ask is meant to help me clarify my thoughts. And because I feed a lot of context of who I am and my personality, it helps me to see the angle that I didn't see before. I wouldn't say it's objectively true, but it does help me to open up another possibilities. But for the fact, yes, sometimes it depends on the specific model and specific version. They may not be 100% right.
Something that I haven't heard anyone talk about, and I've been thinking about this for a while, is I worry about hallucinations and I worry about people over-relying on AI. That's why I think it's, if anything, useful to look to different models, but also the classic, like AI is a tool, right? You have to kind of check its work. You hear about students just kind of using it, and the students who are actually successful at having AI write their essays are the ones who kind of go in and personalize it and amend it. They don't just copy and paste. Something I do worry about is that it's changing the way we think. I don't think everyone's using AI. I imagine the way people asked questions and the way people would literally think changed quite a bit when the internet came out and when Google came out. Because you could now pose your question in a certain format and get a certain answer. And so that feedback loop would make your brain work a certain way and think in a, go down this groove as opposed to this, and maybe just like reduces the scope of the way you can imagine things. I guess similar to like, there's a lot of talk about humans potentially used to have had like telepathy, right? Maybe we used to be able, thousands of years ago, maybe we could communicate without using words. And by using words, we narrow the scope of what we are trying to say, right? We can't express an emotion. I can tell you I feel happy, but I can't give you that emotion so that you understand exactly what I'm saying. It's a problem that writers talk about. I sort of wonder if we are permanently changing the way we think. And I know not everyone uses AI at the moment, but I feel like the way my brain works is different now. I feel like I'm almost automating. The way my thoughts work is different now than the way my thoughts worked a year ago when I was using Google to ask all my questions as opposed to AI. And especially like you say, like ChatGPT, I don't pay for it. I think it probably will get to the point where I have to start paying for it because I ask it so many things. But it does have previous conversations that I've included in there. I ask it about optimizing this podcast, and it goes, well, based on these previous conversations, it sounds like you were thinking of doing this. So it takes that and puts that into the context of everything else. And I go, okay, but I know that it does that. So it's almost like I'm giving up some of my mental faculties to AI. And I sort of worry that, and this is, again, a lot of like the fear conversation. I'm getting late. Well, I don't know if I'm... It's not getting lazy, because this is the thing that people talk about. They said that like kids' IQs were getting lower, or kids were getting dumber who used AI to write essays, as opposed to children who like went and studied French history and Napoleon to find out what happened in the war and wrote their own essay. I can understand that, but I'm not worried about that so much. I'm not worried about getting... It is a weird, I don't really know exactly what I'm asking. Maybe lazier. I still ask it intelligent questions. And it makes me think about things more than I otherwise would have been able to, because I can ask it really specific questions of like, what is this weird Australian mammal and when did people find it, whatever. So I don't think I'm getting dumber. I wouldn't say my IQ's getting lower. It's almost a dependence rather than a laziness. I feel like I'm depending on it. And that is literally changing the way, via a feedback loop, that my brain works. And so when you've got kids growing up with this, the way, I've got younger cousins that grew up with a Nintendo DS. And so they were permanently hooked to it in a way that I never really was, because, kids had phones and things when I was growing up, but it was still kind of a relatively new thing. And I wasn't on a computer all the time. Some of the time, more than my parents' generation were, obviously. But I do worry about the way it will permanently change the way we function as humans and our over-reliance and dependence on it, as opposed to laziness. It will just literally change who we are pre-integration, whether we like it or not. It is happening now.
Yeah. We see this change all the time, right? Like now we have a watch, whether it's a physical or digital. Our ancestor can tell time by the angle of the sun.
Yeah.
And they can navigate without GPS by just looking at the forest, a certain small trait. And we lost that as a trade-off for human progress. But I totally get your point. It's like this fear that are we even complete as a human being without AI, right? Because we taste how sweet it is to have this outsourced brain there. But I find what will work is that use AI from time to time as a tool to clarify your thoughts. I do this a lot because I'm an overthinker. Like I like to think through a lot of things. Pre-AI era, I have to like talk to my mentor, talk to my friends to clarify thoughts. It will probably take me months to figure out where I am, like regarding that kind of a confusing puzzle in my mind. But now whenever I have a question, I start to ask AI, like, here's what I'm thinking. Can you help me pinpoint what is the essence of my worry? What is the essence of the question I'm asking? Because I find what's interesting about human capability most of the time is about clarity and ask the right question. The solution is less important than ask the right question. If you think about a lot of your life situation, when you feel you're anxious or frustrated, it's not because you don't have an answer. It's normally you don't know what you're actually worried about. Like there's a famous quote is that what frustrates human beings is unknown, right? If you can figure out the problem in your life, whether it's a relationship, work, or social, you've already get more than half of the problem solved. But how do you figure out what is the problem you even have in your mind? It's by having clarity of thought. And I think that can be trained by AI. Is almost like your coach. Like when you have those problems in your mind, don't avoid it. Trying to get clarity by, it's almost like a soundboard. Get clarity. And over time, I do find my thought is more clear. Because I think before, people during pandemic, people start to develop the habit of a self-care and talk to therapists. But what does a therapist do to you is actually as a sounding board to provide clarity to your thought. And most people find this reassuring because by having clarity of thought, you already solve most of your issue. And the same thing can be achieved beyond emotional, but like a lot of the problems in working life.
Yeah. You can approach every new problem in a much clearer headed, logical thinking way.
Yeah, to define the problem clearly in the first place.
I would hope that, I imagine there's probably two camps. I imagine there's people who are using AI that are probably, as I've, I guess, already stated, are lowering their IQ and have an over-reliance and over-dependence on it. But then hopefully there's some people who can move towards almost, I guess, a Zen minded way of using AI, that we're not getting further away from old Stoic thinking and logical thinking and philosophy. God. There's one more thing I want to mention before we go, because I have heard you talk about it a little bit and I don't think we've touched on it, is where we're going with health, right? Ending disease, ending death, as you are inherently in this sphere. It's something that people sort of debate about. It's like, oh, we're going to end death and disease in 100 years. And I know there's famously there's like the Zuckerberg-Chan initiative, which is talking about ending disease. Do you think we are anywhere closer to that now than we have been? Maybe not necessarily death. I don't know if we'll ever end death, but ending disease, protein mapping, is this something that you are working on, or do you know people who are working on this?
We do not directly work on this, but our company is like foundation model company, which means we train the foundation model for AI that can be applied in the vertical. But regarding the health thing, I think first of all is a philosophical, like, do we want to live forever, right? Because I feel most of fear about aging is less about the finite life, it's more about the life quality. Like in the later years of the life, how can we preserve the dignity and the quality? And that's a lot of complicated choices, like lifestyle and like you mentioned about the disease and stuff. But I personally don't like this idea of living forever because that removes a lot of the human component out of it, like including we talked before, the meaning. Like a lot of the human value derives from the fact that we have a finite life and we want to live the brightest out of this finite life.
So again, then maybe not ending death, but ending, I don't know, making people's lives better for the short time that we're on the planet.
Yeah, I think that's definitely accelerated by AI. The research in the long horizon is a key to solve that. Because if you look at the drug discovery, it's a lot of try and error and uncertainty. I read this article. It was a pharmaceutical company. They produce a certain drug which requires a certain form of the chemical component. It's the same chemical component but in different form that can change the property. So within manufacturing US, everything all of a sudden changed. It's almost like being infected by certain physical condition. The chemical is still the same but changed the form, and the effectiveness of the drug was reduced. And all the scientists find it's impossible to solve. And then they change the pharmaceutical location to Europe, and that seems to be solved. But as soon as the scientists from US travel to Europe, it seems to bring some kind of infection to that spot, also change the component. And then it realized, the scientists, it was because a certain property that they didn't realize before. And in science discovery, there's always unknown until something happened. And I think for AI, it's not going to be solve it once and for all. But what we have is this kind of a mechanism that constantly like explore, like long horizon reasoning, adapt to the changing circumstances. So I wouldn't see it as a endpoint, like one day with the technology advancement, it sorted out all the issue. Because it's a natural law that everything's co-evolving, right? If we human evolve, maybe the natural world, the bacteria, virus, they also evolve. It's always this check and balance. But what we can do is maybe in a finite window that we win over this disease, we win over this condition, but then another force come in. It's like a spiral. But I do feel we can achieve optimal situation within the limited window, but not like forever or not absolute sense.
A realistic but also very positive note to end on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been really quite wide-ranging. I feel like we've just been ADHD all over the place for the last hour and a bit.
Yeah, I like your questions. It's very challenging.
I'll do my best. Could you please tell people where they can find your work and check out more of what you're doing?
Yeah, so my company is a General Reasoning. We're a London-based AI research company. You can find at our domain gr.inc. And I personally also run my initiative, Seeing Private Club. Exactly like what we mentioned, I don't see technology in separation from the broader discussion in culture and creatives. So this is my initiative to curate community of creative people like you, like actor, musician, architect or biologist, to just discuss things that you mentioned today that may not be like technical but really relate to our daily life. And yeah, people can find me on my website at chengxitaylor.com.
Great, amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.